The transport ship descended through the purple atmosphere of Vorath Prime, carrying the most unlikely passenger in galactic history. Dayan sat alone in the passenger bay, his hands folded in his lap, watching the alien world grow larger through the viewport. He looked ordinary in every way that mattered to the delegation that had selected him. Average height for a human, quiet demeanor, unremarkable features. The perfect sacrifice. The Galactic Council had spent 6 months negotiating this peace treaty. Humanity was young, barely 3 centuries into space travel, while the Vorath Empire had conquered 17 star systems. Queen Nara commanded fleets that could turn planets to glass. Her people stood 7 feet tall with crystalline skin that could stop energy weapons. They possessed psychic powers that could crush minds like paper. The war between humans and Vorath had been brutal and short. Humanity lost. The treaty demanded a symbolic union. A human would marry the Vorath queen. The council chose Dayan because he was expendable. A minor diplomat from the outer colonies with no family, no political connections, no enhanced genetics. If he died in some unfortunate accident, Earth's government could express regret without actually caring. The war would stay ended. Dayan didn't mind. He had volunteered, actually. That had confused the council members, but they accepted quickly before he could change his mind. Now the ship was landing, and guards in crystalline armor were waiting at the platform. The Vorath Imperial Palace rose like a mountain of black glass and purple stone. Towers reached toward the sky, each one capable of housing 1,000 beings. Energy shields shimmered around the perimeter, strong enough to withstand orbital bombardment. This was the heart of an empire, and Dayan walked into it wearing a simple gray suit, perhaps. But harmless? No. Hai Jin pulled up security footage. Watch, here, when he enters the library. The lights dim for exactly 3 seconds. Here, in the garden. The fountain stops flowing until he moves away. And here, when he passes the armory. Every weapon inside activated its safety protocols simultaneously. Nara frowned. Equipment malfunctions. This palace is 3,000 years old. Equipment doesn't malfunction in patterns, Your Majesty. It malfunctions randomly. This follows him. Before Nara could respond, alarms screamed through the palace. Security protocols activated instantly. Energy shields locked into place around the throne room, where a state dinner was being held. Nara stood from her seat, her armor flowing to full combat readiness. Assassins struck from hidden positions, weapons firing with lethal precision. The targets were clear, all aimed at Queen Nara. Energy bolts that could pierce ship armor crossed the room in microseconds. Dayan moved faster than human physiology should allow. One moment he was sitting calmly at the far end of the table. The next, he stood directly in front of Nara, arms spread wide. The energy bolts hit him square in the chest, enough firepower to vaporize a battle tank. The light show was spectacular. Energy absorbed into Dayan's body like water into sand. For one terrible second, his eyes flashed brilliant white, bright enough to hurt Vorath vision. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Every electronic device within 50 meters died instantly. The assassins didn't have time to fire again. They collapsed where they hid, their bodies aging to dust in seconds, as if time itself had reached forward and stolen their futures. Guards found only dried remains and empty weapons. Dayan stood exactly where he'd been, looking confused and slightly worried. "Is everyone all right?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine concern. Queen Nara stared at him, her psychic senses screaming warnings. Where the energy bolts had hit him, his suit was torn. The skin beneath was completely unmarked. Not even a burn. The readings her armor provided made no sense. For a moment, just a moment, they'd registered power levels comparable to a small star. "What are you?" she whispered. Daeyeon looked down at his torn suit with what seemed like genuine embarrassment. I should probably change. I'm sorry about the mess. He walked calmly from the room, nodding politely to shocked guards. Behind him, Queen Nara stood frozen, her worldview cracking at the foundations. Her husband, the expendable human, the political pawn, had just done something impossible. Lady Haijin approached quietly. Your Majesty, I've been investigating his background. Earth's databases show only basic information. But there are gaps, entire decades missing. And when I tried to access deeper records, they were classified at levels above even Galactic Council clearance. Nara watched the doorway where Daeyeon had disappeared. Find out everything. Use any resources necessary. I want to know who I married. In the garden, Daeyeon stood among the alien flowers, breathing slowly. His hands trembled slightly. It had been a long time since he'd needed to use even that much power. He'd hoped to avoid it entirely, to live out this mission quietly. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. He looked up at the unfamiliar stars and sighed. The game had begun whether he wanted it or not. The palace remained on high alert for 3 days after the assassination attempt. Security teams swept every room, questioned every servant, analyzed every piece of evidence. They found nothing useful. The assassins had been professionals, their equipment untraceable, their methods expert. Only one question mattered now. How had Daeyeon survived? Queen Nara requested access to Earth's diplomatic databases through official channels. The Galactic Council approved reluctantly. What she found frustrated her more than enlightened her. Daeyeon's official record was clean but sparse. Born in the outer colonies 42 years ago. Educated in diplomacy and xenolinguistics. Posted to various minor embassies. No military service. No genetic modifications. No criminal record. No family. He existed on paper as the most boring human imaginable. But Lady Haijin found the spaces between the facts more interesting than the facts themselves. He attended the Diplomatic Academy on Mars for 4 years. Then nothing for 7 years. No employment, no travel records, no financial transactions. Then suddenly, he appears as an assistant ambassador to the Kepler station. Works there for 5 years. Then another gap, this one 11 years. He reappears as a cultural liaison, then vanishes for 6 years. The pattern repeats throughout his entire adult life. People don't just disappear for years at a time, Nara said. No, they don't. Unless someone with significant power is erasing their tracks. I tried to access Earth's classified databases. The request was denied at a level I've never encountered. Only 3 entities in the known galaxy can issue clearances that high. The Galactic Council Central Committee, the Tribunal of Ancient Laws, and something called the Archive. Nara had never heard of the Archive. Neither had her intelligence networks. That bothered her more than anything else. Meanwhile, Daeyeon continued his quiet routine as if nothing had happened. He woke early, tended the gardens, read in the library, helped the servants. The only difference was that people watched him now. Guards followed at a distance. Nobles observed from balconies. Everyone wanted to understand what they'd witnessed. A young Vorath servant named Minji spoke with him often. She was small for her species, barely 6 feet tall, and worked in the palace kitchens. Daeyeon had helped her carry supplies one day, and she'd been grateful. Now she sought him out during breaks. Is it true you stopped energy weapons with your body? She asked one afternoon. I was very lucky, Daeyeon replied, trimming purple flowers that smelled like cinnamon. Luck doesn't make weapons disappear. Maybe they malfunctioned. Minji laughed. You're a terrible liar for a diplomat. Daeyeon smiled at that. Perhaps I'm out of practice. The second attack came on a quiet morning 2 weeks later. No dramatic assassination attempt this time. Someone released a biological weapon into the palace's water system. Vorath physiology was resistant to most toxins, but this particular compound had been engineered specifically to target their crystalline cellular structure. Within hours, servants began collapsing. Within a day, 3 were dead. The palace went into full quarantine. Hazmat teams worked desperately to identify and neutralize the contamination. They traced the source to a reservoir in the lower levels. The water there glowed faintly purple with the bioweapon, enough concentrated poison to kill thousands. Dayan found the hazmat team setting up containment protocols. Their leader, a gruff Vorath named Wujin, was arguing with his technicians about the safest approach. "Let me see it," Dayan said quietly. "Absolutely not. 1 drop of this will dissolve your cellular structure in minutes. Humans are even more vulnerable than Vorath. Please." "Trust me." Something in Dayan's voice made Wujin step aside. Dayan approached the contaminated reservoir wearing no protection. He knelt beside the glowing water and reached out with one hand. "Stop!" Wujin shouted. Dayan's hand touched the water. The reaction was immediate. The purple glow began to fade, starting where his fingers made contact and spreading outward. The bioweapon simply died, its complex molecular structure breaking down into harmless compounds. Within 3 minutes, the entire reservoir was clean. Testing confirmed it. Pure water, no contamination, no trace of the weapon that had been there. Dayan stood, his hand completely unharmed. "It's safe now." He walked away before anyone could question him. Behind him, Wujin and his team stood in stunned silence, their instruments confirming what their eyes refused to believe. Queen Nara heard the report within the hour. This time, she didn't wait. She found Dayan in the library, reading a text about ancient Vorath philosophy. "We need to talk, privately." He closed the book. Of course. They went to her private chambers, a place no one else was permitted. Nara activated privacy shields that blocked all surveillance and psychic observation. Then she turned to face her husband. "What are you?" "Human. Don't insult me. Humans can't do what you've done. No known species can." Dayan was quiet for a long moment. "You're right. I'm sorry. I hope to avoid this conversation." "Avoid it? People are dying. Twice now, attacks have targeted me, and twice you've done the impossible to stop them. I am queen of the Vorath Empire. I don't tolerate mysteries in my own palace." "Then you deserve the truth." Dayan met her eyes. "But once I tell you, everything changes. You can't unknow it. The galaxy you understand will become something different." Nara's armor rippled with psychic energy. "Tell me, I volunteered for this marriage because I knew it was dangerous. The Galactic Council didn't choose me randomly. They chose me specifically because of what I am. They're testing me. Or perhaps testing you. I'm not entirely sure which. Testing us for what? To see if humanity's secret can remain hidden while under the most intense scrutiny in the galaxy. To see if even the powerful Vorath Queen can uncover what we've worked so hard to conceal." Nara's psychic senses reached out, trying to probe Dayan's mind as she'd done to countless enemies. Her consciousness touched his and encountered a wall. So absolute, so perfectly constructed, that the rebound nearly broke her. She gasped, stumbling backward. Dayan caught her arm, steadying her. "Please don't do that. It's dangerous for both of us." "What? What is that? That barrier in your mind?" "Protection. For me, and for anyone who tries to look inside. The human mind isn't meant to contain what mine does. Neither is the Vorath mind. You're not making sense." Dayan helped her to a chair. "I'll explain what I can. But I can't tell you everything. Not yet. Some knowledge is dangerous." "I'll decide what's dangerous." He smiled sadly. "No, you won't. Because you don't know enough to make that judgment. None of us do. That's the problem we've been trying to solve for a very long time. Before Nara could respond, her communication device activated. Lady Haijin's voice came through, urgent and afraid. Your Majesty, Lord Taiyang has just issued a formal challenge to your husband. He's invoking the right of combat. If Dayan refuses, he'll be branded a coward and you'll be shamed. If he accepts, he'll be killed, Nara finished. She looked at Dayan. Taiyang is our greatest warrior. He's 7 feet tall, weighs 300 pounds of muscle and crystal, and has killed 200 opponents in combat trials. This is murder disguised as honor. I know, you can refuse. I'll deal with the political consequences. No, Dayan stood. I accept the challenge. Are you insane? He'll tear you apart, perhaps. Or perhaps it's time people saw a little more of the truth. Dayan walked to the door, then paused. Your Majesty, I want you to know something. I didn't come here just because I was ordered to. I came because I believe in what this marriage represents. A bridge between species. A chance for something better than endless war. Whatever happens in the arena, remember that. He left her standing, alone, confused, and frightened, in a way she hadn't been since childhood. The combat trial was scheduled for the next day. News spread across the empire within hours. Nobles began arriving at the palace, eager to witness the spectacle. Betting markets opened, with odds heavily favoring Taiyang. Most bets weren't about whether Dayan would die, but how quickly. Commander Jinwu, the human military attaché, tried to visit Dayan that evening. Guards turned him away. Finally, he sent a message. You don't have to do this. We can get you out. Dayan's reply was simple. I'm exactly where I need to be. In the grand arena the next morning, 50,000 Vorth gathered to watch. Queen Nara sat in the royal box, her face a mask of calm authority. Inside, her thoughts churned with worry and confusion. Lord Taiyang entered first, armor gleaming, carrying weapons that had killed hundreds. The crowd roared approval. He was their champion, proof of Vorth's superiority. Then Dayan entered, barefoot, unarmed, wearing simple cloth pants and a shirt. He looked impossibly small and fragile. The crowd's roar turned to laughter and jeers. Taiyang raised his weapon. Any last words, human? Dayan's expression changed. The kind, gentle diplomat vanished. Something ancient and terrible looked out through his eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that silenced 50,000 voices. Yes, just one question. He smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Do you really think you're strong enough to fight me? The battle was about to begin. Lord Taiyang charged with a roar that shook the arena. His blade, forged from compressed star metal, could cut through ship armor. He moved with the speed and precision that had made him champion of a warrior race. The strike should have split Dayan in half. Dayan caught the blade with his bare hand. The sound of metal striking flesh never came. Instead, there was silence. Absolute, terrible silence as 50,000 Vorth watched the impossible. Taiyang pulled with all his strength. The blade didn't move. It sat in Dayan's palm like a toy in a child's hand. I told you, Dayan said quietly. I didn't come here to fight children. The blade began to rust. Not slowly, not over years as metal naturally corroded. In seconds. The gleaming star metal turned brown, then black, then crumbled to powder. Taiyang stumbled backward, staring at his ruined weapon in horror. Dayan took one step forward. Just one step. The pressure that radiated from him drove Taiyang to his knees. The great warrior, who had never bowed to anyone but his queen, fell to the ground gasping. Around the arena, weaker Vorth fainted. Stronger ones gripped their seats, fighting against the overwhelming presence that filled the space. Queen Nara felt it too, but differently. Her psychic senses could perceive what others only felt. She saw Dayan wreathed in something that wasn't energy or matter, but the potential for both. Reality itself bent around him, waiting for his command. "The trial is over," Dayan announced, his voice carrying effortlessly to every corner of the massive arena. "I have no wish to harm Lord Taiyang. He is brave and strong. But strength has many forms, and some cannot be defeated by courage alone." He turned and walked away. As he left the arena floor, the pressure vanished. Taiyang collapsed completely, gasping for air. Medics rushed to his aid, but he wasn't injured. Just exhausted, as if he'd fought for hours instead of seconds. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, they began to cheer, not for Taiyang, for the small human who had shattered everything they thought they knew. Queen Nara left the royal box immediately. She found Dayan in the gardens, sitting beside the fountain, looking tired and sad. "No more games," she said. "No more partial truths. Tell me everything, or I will have you locked in the deepest prison cell on this planet. You don't have a cell that could hold me. Then tell me why I shouldn't try." Dayan looked up at her. "Because we're on the same side. We always have been. I just couldn't tell you until the right moment. Please sit. This story takes time." Nara sat, her armor retracting slightly. "I'm listening. Humanity isn't what the galaxy thinks we are. We're not a young species stumbling into the stars. We're old. Very old. Thousands of years ago, before most current civilizations even existed, humans spread across the galaxy. Not with ships like we use now, with power. Direct manipulation of space, time, energy, matter. We were gods by any definition that matters. That's impossible. We have records going back 10,000 years. No trace of human civilization exists before 3,000 years ago, I know, because we erased it, all of it. Every record, every monument, every piece of evidence. We chose to forget." Nara stared at him. "Why would anyone do that? Because we became monsters." Dayan's voice carried ancient pain. "Power corrupts, and we had power beyond imagination. We started as explorers and teachers. We ended as tyrants and destroyers. We nearly killed the galaxy. Species were enslaved. Worlds were unmade. Those who resisted were erased from time itself, as if they'd never existed. The war finally ended when the best of us fought the worst of us. Both sides lost. The survivors made a choice. To forget, to seal our abilities and regress, to become normal, limited beings, to raise children who would never know what their ancestors could do. We hoped that given enough time, enough generations, humanity might grow wise enough to handle such power responsibly. And you? I'm a watcher, one of a small group who kept our abilities. We guard against existential threats. We prevent humanity's power from awakening prematurely. And we wait. For what? For the galaxy to need us again. Or for humanity to be ready to remember. Whichever comes first. Queen Nara processed this information, her strategic mind working through implications. The Galactic Council knows. Some of them suspect. A few know for certain. That's why they arranged this marriage. They're trying to understand what humanity can do. They're testing whether you could discover our secret, whether proximity to a watcher might trigger something. And they're preparing. Preparing for what? Dayan was quiet for a moment. There's a reason I came out of hiding. A reason I accepted this mission. Something is coming. Something that fought humanity at the height of our power and nearly won. The Galactic Council knows about it. They've been preparing for decades. But their preparation involves sacrificing most of the galaxy to save a small core of essential species. That's genocide. That's politics when the stakes are survival. The Vorath Empire, Your Majesty, sits on territory that contains relics from humanity's ancient era. The Council plans to let you and your people die when the threat arrives. They'll use the time bought by your resistance to evacuate the species they deem worth saving. Nara stood, fury radiating from her. They wouldn't dare. They will. I've seen the plans. Not officially, of course. But the Watchers have our own intelligence networks. We've been preparing too. Why tell me this? Why not just let it happen? Because I believe there's another way. The old humanity failed because we worked alone, trusted only ourselves, valued only human life. But what if we could combine human power with Voreth's strength? What if we could build something new, something better than what we were? Nara looked at him with new understanding. That's what this marriage really means to you. Not politics. An experiment. A hope, Dayan corrected. I hope that together we might find a solution that saves everyone instead of sacrificing most for the few. Before Nara could respond, alarms screamed across the palace. Both of them ran to the command center, where Lady Haijin stood before holographic displays showing space around Voreth territory. Your Majesty, sensors have detected a massive spatial anomaly at the edge of the system. It's a fleet. Ships unlike anything in our databases. Organic constructs, mixture of technology and biology. They just appeared from nowhere. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Dayan looked at the displays and went pale. No, not yet. It's too soon. What are those? Nara demanded. The Devourers. The existential threat I mentioned. The enemy that nearly destroyed ancient humanity. He turned to her. They shouldn't be here for another decade. Something drew them. Something... He stopped, realization dawning. My power, when I fought Taiyang, when I revealed myself. That much energy across dimensional barriers is like a beacon. They found us because of me. The displays showed the first Devourer ships entering Voreth space. Outer colonies reported contact. Then they went silent. Lady Haijin worked frantically at the controls, mobilizing all fleets, activating planetary defenses. But Your Majesty, if these things destroyed ancient humanity at their peak, what chance do we have? None, Dayan said quietly. Not with conventional weapons. Not with current technology. There's only one option. What option? Nara asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Beneath this palace is a vault, an ancient human installation. Your ancestors built on top of it, without knowing what they were building on. Inside that vault is technology from the old era. Weapons that can fight the Devourers. But activating it requires specific conditions. What conditions? Dayan met her eyes. A full Watcher awakening. I've been using minimal power, just enough to survive threats. If I fully awaken, if I unlock everything I've kept sealed, I can activate the vault. But there's a cost. Name it. The old humanity went mad with power. Their minds couldn't handle what they became. I've kept myself limited precisely to avoid that fate. If I awaken fully, I might save the Voreth Empire. Or I might become something worse than the Devourers. I might become what our ancestors were at their worst. Nara understood the weight of that choice. Is there no alternative? One, you. Dayan stepped closer. Voreth psychic techniques are the most advanced in the current galaxy. If you bonded with me during the awakening, if you used your abilities to anchor my consciousness, we might be able to prevent the corruption. But it's never been attempted. Humans and aliens working at that level of power together. It could kill you. Or worse, the displays showed more colonies going dark. Lady Haijin's face was grim. Your Majesty, the Galactic Council fleet has arrived in system. They're not engaging the Devourers. They're forming a containment perimeter. They're going to quarantine us. They're following their plan, Dayan said. Sacrifice the Voreth to buy time. Queen Nara looked at the displays, at her empire burning. She thought about her people, her ancestors, who built this civilization for nothing. She thought about the marriage she'd accepted as political necessity, but that had become something more. She thought about the choice before her. How do we begin? She asked. Dayan smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. Follow me, and prepare yourself. What you're about to see will change everything. The catacombs beneath the palace descended deeper than any Vorath record indicated. Dayan led Queen Nara and Lady Heijin through passages that grew older the further they went. The architecture changed, becoming something alien, yet strangely familiar. The walls began to glow with soft light that needed no power source. These tunnels predate the palace by 3,000 years, Dayan explained, his hand trailing along the wall. Your ancestors thought they found natural caves and built on top of them. They were half right. The caves are natural. What we carved into them is not. They reached a massive door that looked like it was made from solidified starlight. Dayan placed his palm against it. The door recognized him and opened, revealing a chamber so vast that its ceiling disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood a crystalline structure 50 feet tall, pulsing with gentle blue light. This is a seed vault, Dayan said. One of 12 we placed around the galaxy before we went into hiding. Inside is everything humanity once knew. Technology, history, philosophy, art, but more importantly, weapons. Tools designed to fight threats that conventional armies cannot touch. Lady Heijin approached the structure cautiously, her scanner showing readings that made no sense. This exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. It's not just in this room. It's everywhere and nowhere. Vorath technology has advanced considerably, Dayan noted with approval. Yes, the vault exists across dimensional layers. To access it, I need to exist across those same layers. That's what full awakening means. Nara stepped closer to him. Tell me exactly what happens. When a watcher fully awakens, we access the complete power our ancestors possessed. Control over fundamental forces. The ability to manipulate space, time, energy, matter. The human mind evolved to handle limited sensory input and linear thinking. That mind cannot contain multidimensional awareness without protection. Ancient humans solved this by changing themselves, rewriting their own consciousness. That's when they became monsters. They lost connection to what made them human. And you want me to prevent that? I hope you can. Vorath psychic abilities work differently than human power. You connect minds, link consciousness, share thoughts. If we bonded during my awakening, your presence in my mind might provide an anchor, a reminder of who I am, what I'm fighting for. Above them, the palace shook as Devourer ships entered orbit. Time was running out. How do we begin? Nara asked. Dayan sat in front of the vault, cross-legged on the floor. Sit facing me. Place your hands on my temples. Open your mind completely. No barriers, no defenses. You have to trust me absolutely. Nara had trusted no one absolutely in her entire life. She sat anyway. Her hands touched Dayan's face, and she lowered every psychic shield she'd spent decades building. Her mind opened to his dot. The contact hit like a shockwave. Suddenly, Nara wasn't just herself. She was Dayan too. She felt his memories, thousands of years of them, carefully stored and sealed. She felt his loneliness, the weight of living while everyone he'd ever loved aged and died. She felt his determination, his hope, his fear. And beneath it all, she felt the power he'd been holding back. It was like standing on a dam holding back an ocean. I'm going to release the seals now, Dayan's voice echoed in their shared consciousness. Hold on to me. No matter what you see, no matter what I become, hold on. The seals broke. The ocean flooded through. Dayan screamed. Nara screamed with him. Power beyond comprehension filled them both. Outside their bodies, the vault responded. Crystalline structures throughout the chamber activated. The palace above began to change, revealing its true nature. Walls shifted. Hidden systems came online. The ancient human fortress buried beneath Vorith. Architecture awakened after 3,000 years of sleep. In their shared mind, Nara struggled to maintain coherence. She could feel Dayan changing, his consciousness expanding across dimensions she couldn't fully perceive. Memories flooded through him. Not just his own, but echoes from the vault. The complete history of ancient humanity. Their triumphs. Their crimes. The weight of it threatened to shatter him. Dayan, she called through their link. Stay with me. Remember why we're doing this. I remember everything, he replied, his voice strange and terrible. I remember worlds we built, worlds we destroyed. I remember the faces of those we saved and those we damned. How can I be trusted with this power, knowing what it made us become? Because you're not them. You're you. And you're not alone. That simple truth anchored him. He wasn't alone. For the first time in thousands of years of watching and waiting, he wasn't alone. Nara's presence in his mind provided perspective. Her strength gave him strength. Slowly, painfully, Dayan pulled himself together. The power didn't diminish, but he gained control over it. Outside, the palace completed its transformation. What had been a beautiful building became a fortress ship beyond anything the current galaxy had seen. Weapon systems that operated on principles the Vorith couldn't understand came online. Temporal cannons, singularity generators, reality anchors. The structure lifted from the planet, its mass somehow becoming negligible as it violated known physics. Lady Haijin watched from a safe chamber as the transformation completed. Her communication device activated. Commander Jinwu's voice came through, full of awe. What is that thing? That, Haijin replied, is what humanity used to be. In the vault chamber, Dayan and Nara opened their eyes. They were still connected, still sharing consciousness. When Dayan stood, Nara stood with him. They moved to the command center, which had reshaped itself around the vault. The displays showed Devourer ships surrounding Vorith Prime. Thousands of them. Organic constructs that consumed everything they touched. They'd already destroyed 6 outer colonies. Millions were dead. I'm sorry I couldn't prevent this, Dayan said, his voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. Stop apologizing and start fighting, Nara replied. Their shared consciousness made communication almost unnecessary, but speaking helped them both remember their humanity. Dayan interfaced with the fortress ship through thought alone. Weapons targeted the nearest Devourer vessels. What happened next redefined warfare for everyone watching. The temporal cannons fired, and Devourer ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not exploded. Erased from the timeline, unmade at the quantum level. The Devourer fleet adapted immediately. Their ships had fought ancient humanity before. They'd learned from that war. Shields activated that existed outside normal space. Counterweapons deployed that targeted not ships, but the fabric of reality itself. A psychic assault hit Dayan directly, trying to corrupt his expanded consciousness as the Devourers had corrupted ancient humans. The attack was sophisticated and brutal. If Dayan had been alone, it might have worked. But Nara was there, in his mind, her warrior's discipline providing structure to his power. Together, they deflected the attack. They're trying to turn you into what your ancestors became, Nara realized. They succeeded before. Ancient humanity fell as much from internal corruption as external defeat. The Devourers weaponized power against those who wield it. The battle reached a stalemate. Dayan was powerful, perhaps more powerful than any single entity in the current galaxy. But he was still one being against thousands of ships designed to fight beings like him. He could win eventually, but not before the Devourers destroyed everything he was trying to save. "We need help," Nara said. As if in answer, space tore open in multiple locations. New ships arrived, each similar to Dayan's fortress, but unique in design. Each commanded by a single consciousness. The other Watchers had felt Dayan's awakening in calm. Soyin arrived first, her ship phasing between dimensions as she walked through realities like doors. Junho followed, his vessel warping gravity itself into a weapon. Hana came next, her ship alive and growing, evolution made manifest. And finally, Kiwu, the eldest Watcher, appearing as a simple old man, but radiating power that made stars dim. Through their shared connection, Dayan felt Nara's awe. These were beings who had lived for millennia, who had witnessed empires rise and fall, who held back power that could reshape galaxies. Kiwu's voice filled Dayan's mind. "Brother, you've awakened. We felt it across the void. But I bring ill news. The Devourers didn't find you by accident. I know. My power drew them. No, someone called them. Someone in the Galactic Council summoned them deliberately. They prefer the Devourers to the possibility of humanity's return. They've decided to destroy the galaxy rather than risk our resurgence." Nara felt rage flood through their connection. "The Council did this? They murdered millions of my people?" "They've murdered billions across multiple species," Kiwu replied. "And they're not done. The Devourers are just one weapon in their arsenal." Above Vorth Prime, the battle intensified. 5 Watchers fought thousands of Devourer ships. Reality itself became a casualty as weapons that operated on fundamental forces clashed. The Vorth fleet tried to help, but found themselves helpless. Their weapons couldn't even perceive the battle properly, let alone affect it. Inside the fortress ship, Dayan made a decision. "We can't fight the Devourers and the Council simultaneously. We need allies. Real allies, not pawns. The other species will never trust humans with this power," Lady Hygiene warned over communication channels. "Then we don't ask them to trust humans. We ask them to trust what humans and Vorth can become together." Dayan looked at Nara through their shared consciousness. "Are you willing to try something unprecedented? What do you have in mind?" "Bond other species with Watchers. Share our power as I'm sharing it with you. Create something the galaxy has never seen." The implications were staggering. The risk was immense. And time was running out. "Do it," Queen Nara commanded. "Send the message. Let the galaxy choose." The message went out across every communication channel in known space. Not just words, but pure truth transmitted through methods the current galaxy had forgotten. Every sapient being capable of receiving it heard Dayan's voice in their mind, felt the weight of his sincerity, understood the choice before them. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. The Devourers have returned, and they will consume everything if unopposed. The Galactic Council has chosen to sacrifice most of you to save themselves. But there is another way. Humanity once possessed power to fight threats like this. We sealed that power because we misused it. Now we offer to share it, not as masters but as partners. Anyone willing to bond with a Watcher, to merge your consciousness with ours, can help turn the tide. The risk is death or worse. The reward is survival. Choose quickly. Time is running out. The response was immediate and divided. Half the galaxy's species rejected the offer instantly, fearing human power more than the Devourers. Several species accused the Watchers of staging the entire invasion to justify their return. The Galactic Council issued emergency edicts declaring the bonding process illegal. But some listened. Some chose hope over fear. A Keldan warrior named Bora volunteered first. The Keldans were a species of living crystal, similar to the Vorth, but smaller and more fragile. Bora had lost her entire family to the Devourers. She arrived at Dayon's fortress ship with nothing but determination. The bonding process was brutal. Soyin, the watcher who walked between dimensions, merged her consciousness with Bora. The Keldan screamed as power flooded through her crystalline form. For terrible seconds, it seemed she would shatter. Then something clicked. Keldan crystal structure adapted to multidimensional energy in ways human flesh couldn't. The bond stabilized. Bora stood transformed, her body glowing with impossible light, her mind spanning realities. More volunteers came. A Hiveran scholar named Minho bonded with Juno, gaining control over gravity. A Thalassian engineer named Yunji merged with Hana, her body becoming a living ecosystem that could adapt to any environment. Some bondings failed catastrophically. Volunteers died or went mad. But enough succeeded to create something new, the United Ascension. The Galactic Council watched in horror as their carefully maintained order crumbled. For thousands of years, they'd kept the galaxy's species limited, controlled, manageable. They'd assassinated anyone who grew too powerful. They'd suppressed technologies that might upset the balance. They believed this prevented another catastrophe like ancient humanity's fall. But what they'd really created was stagnation. A galaxy that couldn't grow, couldn't evolve, couldn't face new challenges. And now that philosophy was killing them. Counselor Yuri, the Council's leader, appeared on screens throughout civilized space. They were an energy being, ancient beyond measure, one of the few entities that remembered humanity's first fall. Their voice carried absolute conviction. The Watchers lie. They promise partnership but deliver domination. Ancient humanity said the same words before they enslaved the galaxy. We cannot allow this. The Devourers are terrible, but they can be survived. Human tyranny cannot. I hereby activate Protocol Omega. Dayon felt the activation through his expanded senses. No, they wouldn't. What is Protocol Omega? Nara asked through their bond. Ancient weapons the Council has been hoarding. Designed by humanity's enemies during the First War. They're supposed to be fail-safes against us. But using them will. Space ripped open across 20 star systems simultaneously. Machines emerged, older than current civilization, designed for one purpose, destroying beings with multidimensional power. They didn't discriminate. Watchers, Devourers, or the newly bonded members of the United Ascension, all were targets. They're going to kill everyone. Lady Haijin's voice came through communication channels. The Devourers, you, us, anyone touched by either power. They're resetting the galaxy. The three-way battle erupted across known space. Devourers fought the Omega weapons. The Omega weapons targeted anything powerful. The United Ascension fought both, trying to preserve what they could. The death toll climbed into the billions within hours. Dayon made a decision. Through his bond with Nara, he accessed the complete strategic database of the Vorth Empire.